people will come to me and say, I want to be on these big stages. And I'm like, okay, amazing. What small stages have you been on? Honesty's always the best policy. You don't have to fake things.
Yeah.
I think people think you have to fake things and you don't. And the more honest you get, the better your brand's actually going to be.
The devil loves to do that, just to make us not reveal things so God can't heal them. Welcome to the Collective Talk podcast, where we share reflections on prayer, family, and ministry. On this episode of the Collective Talk, we'll be sharing all about how to fortify your life, business, and brand. And today, I'm so excited because we have my beautiful friend, Emily Ford, on the show today. Can you help me welcome Emily Ford? I'm so excited you're here today.
I'm honored to be here.
I'm so pumped. I was like, actually, the last season I wanted you on the show because you're just like, I look up to you so much. You're such an inspiration in everything that you do and how you live out your faith and your business. I'm like, I watch all her Instagram stories. I'm like, how do I up my brand and all that stuff? But you do such an incredible job. And I'm just excited for people to get to know you. I'm sure so many people already know you, but I just wanted to ask you, how did you first come to California from Minnesota, right? So how was that whole experience?
Yeah, well, Midwest chicks.
Yes, yes.
Once you come to LA or California, you're like, the sun is always shining and oh my gosh. Well, what happened for me was I got in entrepreneurship when I was 23.
Wow.
I was broke at the time, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. I moved in with my girlfriend.
Wow.
We unplugged the TV and we said, let's just build something of our own. And that happened to be in the health and wellness field. And so we went to work, and I didn't go to college or anything like that. I nannied 4 boys. I was competing in fitness. I was a certified massage therapist. Like I did like 5 jobs. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. So I bought a bunch of books, personal development books, and just went to work and learned sales.
Wow.
And so 3 years went by of basically being in this incubator of all I did was build this company. And then suddenly it was like February in Minneapolis. And I'm like, the lake is frozen. I'm freezing and I'm really bored. And I'm like, why don't I just go to Santa Monica and work from the beach? And so that's what I did. And once I got here, that's where I was like, oh, I have more energy. It's so much nicer.
Yes.
And what I realized, a lot of people like in LA, they talk a lot, but they don't like do what they say. And I grew up, my grandparents baling hay, milking cows. And I'm like, oh, we can work. And I'm like, I love it. And so that's how I landed here. And yeah, my mom was like, she's never coming home.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's amazing. Yeah. I didn't know that about your family and farmers. I mean, I have it too. That's probably why I loved you so much, because my grandpa was a farmer as well.
Okay.
And so I remember as a young girl, we definitely know how to work and all of that. So that's so amazing. I didn't know that whole story. So I know recently that you just got married. Well, it's been a year. Is it a year?
We just had our year anniversary in Cabo.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Is that where you guys did your honeymoon, was in Cabo or no?
Where did we do our
I know, I'm trying to think of where you guys...
we kind of didn't do a honeymoon.
Okay, yeah. But that's so special. So you went to Cabo, celebrated 1 year.
1 year.
That is amazing.
And it's been incredible. And, so many women ask me, like, because I seem to attract a lot of women that are motivated in my life. And I always say you attract who you are, who you once were.
That's right.
And for so many years, I was single in LA waiting for the right person. And I will tell you, I was so frustrated dating. I would call them appetizer dates, where you're like, this ain't gonna work. Peace out. I'm done, And when I got so clear on, okay, I want to be with a man who really loves the Lord and who can lead me And, I knew I needed somebody that could lead me, being a strong female. I prayed Jake into my life and met him a month later. And then, now we're married.
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys are the cutest couple ever. And I was honored to be at your beautiful wedding. You were like the most beautiful bride. Your dress to the location. I mean, oh my gosh. What was your most favorite part about your wedding, do you think?
That we kept it super small and intimate. And all I focused on was me and him and God. And I think a lot of my life, it's like stages and business conferences and this and it just felt so right. Like we kept the main thing, and it was so special. And him and I like laid everything down after we met of our past life and pursued God and cleaned ourselves up in so many ways. And so it just felt like so peaceful and pure.
Yes.
And I think that was my favorite thing. It just felt so good.
It was like, it felt so pure and just so, I loved how it was small, but it was beautiful to, like, man, you could just feel God's presence at your guys' wedding. And my husband did your guys' wedding. That was so special. So, but I'm just, I can't even believe it's been a year. That's just crazy to think of.
I know.
Yeah. Well, you were at my small group. I do like a business small group. I think it was last year, but you said something so profound about you get invited to many business conferences and you get to speak. You get to speak at all of these. You're like keynote speaker at many places. But what did you like? A lot of people would invite you to come speak because of how you treated your husband, or is that the case, or what was it that you?
Yeah, it's funny because typically even this morning I had a call with a gentleman and he's like, I need a female speaker, and like, you're who I'm thinking. And, I've got a bunch of other class grade A men on the docket. And I asked like, hey, can I ask why you thought of me? And a lot of them will say something to the fact of, well, it's because of how you honor your husband and men. And it's in the particular business conferences I've been speaking at, whether it's real estate, investing, mindset, or whatever, it seems to be like who's ever running it, which is great, is in a healthy marriage. And a lot of the power chicks out there in the world, like they either hide their husbands or don't have that type of relationship of honoring. And so I believe it's just something that we need to look at, like as a society, is why is that?
Yes.
One of the last conferences I spoke at, it was me and a couple other girls, and like I was giving my message on generational transference and, talking about my healing journey and how I healed and learned and allowed to have my husband love me and what that even looks like, and how you can still be a strong female and honor your man.
I love that.
And what that really looks like. And then the next speaker comes on stage and is like, you're going to go through many different partners in your lifetime, and it's okay. And you're going to grow in this season. And it's like the contradicting messages.
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. And so I always tell people, question everything.
Yeah.
And now I question everything. And then I go back to the lens of scripture so that I can go, is this true? Is this based on the truth? Because Rachelle, like in the personal development world, a lot of the ideology is just passed on and passed on and passed on. And I'm like, do you even know what you're saying? Follow your heart. Oh my gosh, if I just followed my heart all the time, we'd be in big trouble. You know what I'm saying? So
that's really good.
I think people with, really strong values and morals are looking, they're looking for women that, honor their man.
Good. That's really profound. I love that. And why do you think that we live in, I mean, obviously we live in a culture where it disrespects men and, I feel like it just tries to downgrade and dishonor men and to make us a more powerful woman. I mean, that's what culture, I feel like does. Why do you feel like?
Because there's so much pain.
Yeah.
And I can so relate because I was raised by a single mom and she raised us 3 kids. And because she was angry a lot and sad, she would make statements about men, about my father, about this guy, about that guy. And so subconsciously, it's like I caught all this. And I was taught to protect yourself from men, like draw your swords. Like even when my husband met me and he kept showing up for dates and he's like bringing flowers and he's like, you can put your swords down because it was just this thing, right? And so I feel like if you have not been raised in an environment with healthy marriage or even have peers around you with healthy marriage, then it just gets that's the echo chamber that you're now in.
Yeah.
And if we look at the divorce rate and if we look at just people in general and the trauma they've had, I mean, that's really where it stems from.
Yes.
So it's like this vicious cycle that society is in.
Yes, it's so true. I love this in the Bible. It talks about if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? And I feel like so many people, they don't have that, like you were saying, they don't have that godly foundation, or they don't have a grid, or they don't have, they didn't grow up with families or good, marriages, or they didn't have parents that were together, or so that trauma. Can you speak to that? Everybody has gone through things in their life, but how can they overcome? Maybe they didn't have that in their, growing up, or even today. Maybe they're in a marriage that is not good or it's not healthy.
Yeah.
What would you say? How can they develop that strong foundation?
I mean, I think it starts like going to a great church that actually talks about these things. And you and Pastor Mark, like I could cry because it's like God knew exactly what he was doing, because Jake and I we were faith-based people, but we didn't know the depth of Jesus because we were going to churches that were fine in their own right, but they were like entry level.
Right.
I didn't know what I didn't KNOW.
Right.
No, I didn't know the Lord like that. And it's the best thing you can ever do is to find a church that has sound doctrine, that's spirit filled. And, I tell this to all my girls. I'm like, listen, there was one point in my life that I was going to therapy twice a week, and I love therapy.
Yes.
Okay. I was trying all the things. I wanted to get better. I recognized that I wouldn't label this now as myself, but at the time, daddy issues. I really, really struggled with self-worth. I needed attention. I was looking for love in all the wrong places, like cue the man eater song for a minute there, and it's like, I can proudly talk about this now. Like I can tell people this because I know so many people have issues. And I will tell you, when I entered Ocean's Church, the tents, we were in the tents at the time, I started my journey of really healing, but it's gotta be, you gotta dance with God. Like you gotta do it with him. You gotta co-labor with the Lord. And Rachelle, I so badly wanted to get better that I'm like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so I did. And this continuous process of, going to church, to then changing the music that I'm listening to changing my friend groups. And I still love so many of those people, and I will talk to them on the phone, but I changed the parties I went to.
Wow.
I changed the TV I watched, and my now husband, but at the time I was dating him, did the same.
Wow.
And so when I started to lay everything down
Yeah.
and had a true healing experience through deliverance, true healing, like years and years and years of trauma, like that,
Wow.
I made a promise to the Lord. I said, I'm going to follow you.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to let this man that I love, I'm going to let him know that I'm going to follow you, but we got to be on the same page here. And so I did that. And Jake was like, no, I want to follow the Lord as well. And so at the same time, him and I laid our old lives down and came together, and you know, you're either growing together or you're growing apart. And so it's like, I just look at it like this, and it's like the Lord is here, and Jake is here, and I'm here, and we're growing together, and iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
And we're like little besties who are just like, okay, like here's a verse, you know? And so we just met each other, you know? But there's times where I feel like if one's down, like I even last night, you know, sometimes he can get down on himself, and I'm like, babe, listen, we deserve to have joy. The Lord wants us to have joy. And he's like, oh, you're so right. You know? And so it's like, even if you're the female listening to this, you might have to be the one that's like, babe, let's go try this church, or babe, let's read this book together. And
So good.
you know, you can get yourself out of anything, but if you really want to heal, involving God is the only way.
Yeah.
I feel.
That's so good. I love that. And your story, your beautiful story within your guys' marriage and your relationship, and just they're like the cutest couple ever. And just to see how your foundation is God. And so that's like, you know, your marriage is built on that. And so it's so healthy, and you can tell that. And you both are healthy. Coming into your marriage, you both were just so healthy coming in. And so it's so, I feel like that's the key. And you guys did it so well. And then you started coming to church and then putting God first. I love what you were talking about, that you started, you know, those patterns that you used to do, like the friends that you hung out with, the things that you used to do, you separated yourself from those things that, and I think a lot of times people feel like, well, if I let all I don't want to lose my friends, or I don't want, if I come to church, I'm going to lose everything if I surrender to God, right? But that's not the case.
It's not the case.
No.
And you do feel like at first, like your ego, it's almost like, I felt like, oh my gosh, am I missing out? And what am I doing? But I was not strong enough.
Right.
You know, and even now I always say I got to go to the holy ground, and then I can go out in the battleground, and then I got to go to
that's really good.
And if I think, like sometimes this happens to me where I'm like, I'm good, I can stay out in the battleground, come at me, you know what I mean? Like I'm good. I'm like, it always trips me up. Like you have to keep coming back to the holy ground. And in the season, and I want to make this abundantly clear, because I feel like there's someone listening right now who's like, that sounds really great, but I'm alone right now. I was alone for nearly 5 years of loneliness, of not with a partner, not, you know, like it's like being obedient during that time though, you know what I'm saying? And like leaning in and getting better. Like there's so much favor in that.
Yes.
There absolutely is. And I just did an episode and I named it The Messy Middle.
Oh, I love
because
that.
it's like, there might be a period where God is just testing you. And I feel like Jake and I also went through that in business, where it was like, oh, let's try this, it's not working. Let's try this, it's not working. You know, and no one really talks about that part.
It's so true.
You know, where it's like, it's not happening. Like we feel like we're failing.
Yes. The middle is always like, but God is always in the middle, even though we don't, you know, even though you don't see God, you can see his happenings or the things that he does behind the scenes. And so sometimes the middle that's the hardest. It's in the waiting. It's in the, okay, God, I believe you for this, but man, the middle is hard.
It is.
It is hard. And I know for my life in particular, I feel like many times those were the hardest seasons, were those middle ground seasons. But I love what you were saying. What did you say? You said, I got to come back to the holy ground before I go to the battleground.
Yes.
And I think that's key for the middle ground season too.
Absolutely.
Is going back to that holy ground and going back to that foundation, which is God.
And you know, and I'm so grateful for it, because in the pain is where I was molded, because I don't think like I would have ever searched for God. You know what I'm saying? Like the understanding, and it's like that fortifies your faith.
Yes.
And so even though we don't see things growing, and I like to build things, like, you know, like I like to build, I like to grow. I'm like, can we just zhuzh this up and change this? And like, I just love it. Like, can we just, anything that I can just paint, I'm like, let's do it.
Yes.
And so when I don't see progress, it's like, just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
It's good.
And it's like, I feel like that's where like the depth comes from, and the trust. And, you know, it's like, do you really lean on me and not on your own understanding? And that's what I really learned through that period.
So good. And I love that verse that you just brought up. Do you trust in God, or are you leaning on your own understanding? You know, that's Proverbs 3. And so it is true. Are we trusting in just what circumstance tells us, or are we trusting in God? I think that's so profound. Well, you have an incredible business. And can you tell us a little bit about your business, all that you do? I mean, you're just incredible at what you do, but can you tell the listeners what you do? Yeah.
Well, after having a personal brand for nearly 15 years and just seeing the way the world is changing, personal brand is everything. Like, everybody needs a personal brand. Yeah. And, you know, whether they work corporate, they're a stay-at-home mom, they have an Etsy business, real estate, it don't matter. We all need a personal brand. That's like, you know, even when people come to our company to apply, I go to their social media before I even look at their resume.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's like, you know, even someone applied once and I was like, oh, beautiful resume. And then I go to the Instagram and they're like jumping on tables, working at, you know, wherever. I'm like, okay, this doesn't, you know, personal brand is everything. And so what I recognized is people need help in developing their personal brand, in expressing who God created them to be. And I love talking with people and really going through their unique talents, their giftings. I love to pull things out of where they've been. I believe you're most powerfully positioned to serve who you once were.
Wow.
You know, what God has redeemed. You're wise in that area because you've walked through it.
So good.
And so what we do at Fortify is we help people build personal brands that are true to them. They're not copy and paste Instagram things, because that's what happens. We get online and we're like, oh, let me just copy and paste this, or let me just do this because this is what they did. I love to create something that really resonates with the human soul. And so what we do is I have a method where I teach people how to do this, how to build their personal brand online. And then I also do VIP, where we build personal brands in person. And, you know, I'm working with executives right now from huge corporations that are like, okay, I need a personal brand. Nobody knows who I am, even though I run a $1 billion company.
Wow.
And then I also work with women that are like, I've had a disabled child for years. I walked through it. I want to help other moms. How can I get my message out there? And so it's so fun. That's what Fortify is. And we're just getting started.
It's amazing. Well, I just love watching your IG stories, because everything, like, it's just so cool. I want to be in the room sometimes because I see that you're working personally with people on their brands, and then you'll take photo shoots and then with them. And do you do the styling as well, or do you hire someone to do that?
I guide them. So we do like their whole brand guide and colors and all that. And
wow.
it's really, it eliminates decision fatigue. So even when I did my whole brand, it's like I just have my basic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have to like think about all the time. You know, I still think about what I'm going to wear. You know me, you and
Yeah.
I.
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah.
love our clothes.
We do.
We do love our clothes. Okay. But it just really helps, and it
Yes.
elevates, and it helps
Yeah.
people with their confidence. And with Fortify,
Yeah.
we also implemented Fortify Your Faith because, Rachelle, what I recognize is I sit with these people. I'm like, you're brilliant. What's going on? And it's like the spirit of perfection. It's there's strongholds so deep in there.
Yes.
And it's like, we have got to fortify your faith.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all this stuff we create, you're not going to be able to put it out.
Wow.
And a lot of times I work with women that have these huge missions on their heart, and they want to even share their faith. And that's probably one of the number one questions I get in the DMs is, thanks for sharing your faith. Like, how did you become bold to do that?
Oh, really? Wow.
And I'm
amazing.
like, girl, like, what does it tell us in the Bible? It tells us to share
yes.
the Lord, like to spread the good
Yes.
message.
Yeah.
And so I'm being obedient to that, but they're always countering and saying, but what'll people think? It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It only matters what God thinks. And so what I love to do within Fortify is bring the faith element in there.
I love that.
Because it's so needed
Yes.
for them to put themselves out there and to glorify God. Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's not about glorifying ourselves. It's about using our gifts that he gave us to glorify him.
So good.
Yeah.
And so do you think that faith has played a role in your success, like things that you're doing?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To the fact of everything I first learned in business,
Yeah.
just all these books, like books on books on books.
Right.
I love books. But especially when I started coming to Ocean's Church, and it's so funny because my husband Jake is always messaging Pastor Mark.
I know
and
their relationship is so cute.
Because Jake loves to learn, and Jake's always like, "Hey, what does this mean?" And it's so incredible to see Mark counsel him and help him with that, because we just want to get it right. We're like newbies.
Right.
I cannot wait to be able to speak like you and to memorize scripture. Like, to me, that is inspirational. That is like what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the truth. You're literally spewing the truth, the living word of God. And so, you know, what I started to do is actually fear the Lord. And I'm a big fan of Jerry Lorenzo, Fear of God. I'm so proud of his company. And I actually started to know what it meant to fear the Lord, because I know better now. Before, I loved God, but I didn't know God like I do now. So now there's a fearing over me. And I was backstage, and we had one of our partners, Christian, with us, who works in our company, and my husband, and, you know, I'm backstage, and I kind of know what I'm going to say, like the general gisty, but I'm like, I always let the Holy Spirit flow. Plus, I don't know what's happening in the room and who needs what. That's God's plan. And so I go out there and do the thing. It's a business conference in Mexico, all these business guys, and everyone's like wailing and crying, and we're having healing at the end. And my partner was like, did you plan that? And I said, Christian, I just fear the Lord.
Wow.
I knew what I could say, which is so in my head, but I knew what the Lord was telling me.
So good, Emily.
And I'm like, that to me is growth. And that to me is happiness. That is happiness. But before, back in the day, I would just be like, find the teleprompter and let me spew out, you know, the things that you hear all the time. At these money conferences and stuff.
That you think they want to hear and all of that stuff, but doing what God wanted you to do, I think it was so key in fearing the Lord. And I love that in Proverbs, it talks about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so that's so true. And I think if you fear God, you listen to what he wants you to do. And, you know, I heard this story, Mark and I went to this conference, and we got the opportunity to hear John Maxwell speak, and I know you know
I
him
love
and you
Papa
love him.
John.
Yes,
I call him Papa John.
and you've probably heard the story then, but he was telling the story how he went to, I think it was one of his first speaking engagements when he was younger, or it was to a youth conference. And God told him beforehand not to speak, but to just do an altar call. And so he was like, arguing with God in his prayer time, like, God, is this me? Are you sure? Like, they're inviting me to come to this conference and you don't want me to speak. You just want me to do an altar call. And so he was wrestling with God on that. And he was telling us at this conference this story, and it with tears in his eyes. And but when he got up, he said that he didn't fear God. He just did the message. And he said, he was telling all of us, it was so crazy. I couldn't get any words out. He's the most incredible communicator and speaker.
Yeah,
he was like, I couldn't even talk.
Wow.
It was like, God was like, nope, you're not going to share this message. I already told you, you're not going to do this. And so anyway, he ended up repenting in front of all. He stopped because it was just going horribly, he said. And he stopped in the middle of the conference and started repenting and said, I'm so sorry to all of these thousands of youth. I wasn't supposed to share this message. God told me not to.
Oh my God.
And then he just called, and then I think he started kneeling on the ground and crying. And then it was the altar call. All of the kids started running forward to the altar. So that's what God wanted him to do initially. But I think that I love what you were saying about the fear of God. Mm-hmm. Like that is truly the beginning of wisdom. If we listen to his voice, and that's a birthright of every son and daughter, is we get to hear from God, but it's in our obedience, which you did. Mm-hmm. You listened to God, and that's why that was amazing what happened at your conference. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I wanted to share that story. And so I thought that I was crying when he was sharing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it just makes me want to listen and be led by the Holy Spirit even more.
Right. Same.
Yes.
Same.
Yeah. So have you had many moments like that, Emily, where you feel like you've wrestled with God on things, or maybe during things that you've done within your business?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the enemy will fight me, like, you know what I mean? Like all the time. I feel like it's a test.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
And I always know, I feel like, and I don't know what you would say to this, but I feel like when it starts to get more difficult, it's typically when I'm not in my Bible. It's like when I have let go of that time with God, and it just starts with one day, right?
So true.
I'm busy today. I'm not reading today. I'm not worshiping today. And then one turns into two. And then I feel like when I get away from that, the holy ground, that's when all the chaos starts happening. Like if we just look at it, and then you stop going to church for whatever reason. And even if you're on a flight, you're not listening, to the playback or whatever. Like I feel like that is when I start making stupid mistakes.
It's so true.
And I'm like, Emily, you should have saw that. Where was your discernment? Well, you weren't walking with the Lord.
Yes. That's so good. I love that.
It's just honest,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. It's going back to, I love that what you said, going back to that holy ground, but having that devotional time, making sure that I love Mark, my husband always says that make a time and a place for God. Oh, yeah. And you every day, just like you're building your business, you're building things in your life. We're all builders. We're all called to build, but also I think build your relationship with God, and making a time and a place for God is so key to our Christian faith. And it is so true. When you miss a day, it's easy to miss the next day.
Oh gosh.
And so being consistent, I think is key. Mm-hmm. So I think that's so good. So Emily, how do you approach interacting with people in the business world and sharing your faith, or And who do you not share your faith with? Or do you kind of know when you're in a certain environment, how you share your faith? What does that look like?
Wherever you go, you take yourself with you, right? Like who you are.
Yeah.
And I always think, be like Jesus, right? And like he loves all people, no matter what, you know? And it's not even like what you say, it's how you move, it's how you act, it's how you treat people. And so I just love on people. And then if I have the opportunity to have the mic, and I'm still learning, like I am still learning. I'm trying to speak only truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when you get the opportunity to get the microphone, it's like, what am I going to be preaching to these people? And I'm no preacher, but I'm saying as a speaker, even if I'm training on personal branding or whatever, right? And so people know. In fact, I was at this other conference and there was a preacher in the back and it was like a very like, you know, mixed audience. And he was like, I knew you were preaching the word. And he's like, I was like, go, go, go. And he was like, I was praying back there. And
awesome.
He's like, I knew what was happening. And he's like, I couldn't believe that this blonde girl came out. And she was like, she
was preaching.
Yeah. And you know, so what I started to do, because I had all these speeches and slides with all this stuff, sales, branding, I don't know, you name it, building team culture, like all the stuff that I've done for decades. Like I used to go to South Korea and have a translator and build teams there. I would go to Europe and I would do all this for my previous business that I was in. And I would teach all this stuff. But once I really started to understand the truth of God and the living word and all this, and what I was reading before about the manifestation, and we don't need to get all into all that stuff. Okay. So what I just started to do is when I make a presentation now, I have my husband help me because he loves studying the Bible. I'm like, is this the truth? And can, you know, if I'm going to go on this stage, can you look this over for me and make sure
it's theologically sound? Yeah.
So then when a girl from LA is sitting in the front row who's charging her crystals in her hotel room and doing whatever, you know, doing all these other things, she's like, there's something different that this woman's saying, and I don't know what it is. And so what I have happen and had happen at one of the last conferences when people get in the receiving line to meet and greet and share their story, she was like, I don't know what's different. What is so different, you know? And so then I take that opportunity and I ask them, is it all right if I pray for you?
Wow.
Can we stay connected?
Yes.
And depending on where people are at, I like to think of it as like a drip campaign of like, let me just start to drip Jesus on you. So I'm like, follow me on social, listen to my stuff.
I love that.
You know, because the thing is this, Rachelle, like I was filled with shame when I was a little girl growing up. And I would go into environments with Christians and they all looked perfect to me. And they all had perfect little families and perfect little husbands and wives and we didn't have that. Yeah. And so I automatically like discounted myself. And I'm like, that's good for them. But like sometimes I listen to rap music and sometimes I'm like, sometimes you know, like I cuss a little, right? Yeah. And so I automatically discounted myself and I know how that feels.
Yes.
And those people never meant to do that to me. I think some people they get so conditioned to only be in their bubble.
That's right.
With their church friends or whatever, where I'm like, no, we got to go to the battleground and pull those people out. So I think I look at it from that lens. And even when it comes to branding and my avatar, like I feel on my heart, like I want to help that lost girl.
Wow.
Because I know what she's going through.
Oh my gosh. Well, you live that so well, Emily. You just are like, as soon as I met you, I'm like, oh my gosh, she has a massive heart for people.
Thank you.
And I feel like that is one of your amazing giftings that God's given you is his heart for people, and you help people obviously build their brand, but you help them discover the gold that's in them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what God does. You know, he pushes past the dirt, and he pushes past the mess and the things that we go through in life. And he discovers, like, or we discover, actually, we're the ones that discover, oh my gosh, there's greatness in there. And that's what you do so well. Like, I've just seen it. Like, when I watch on Instagram, or the people that you impact, like, to see God pull the gold, the unique gold out of each and every one of those people that you're helping to build their brands, it's beautiful. And that's what God does to us. And I feel like that's one of your giftings and strengths. And that's what I see in you and I admire in you. But you do that so, so well. It's like, I see those people on Instagram and I'm like, I see when you first talk with them to after you do the shoot and you're meeting with them, they look so happy and so full of joy. Like, how amazing is that that's your job, that you get
It's so amazing.
Yes.
And after, and no matter what line of work you do, I always tell people, like, you have to re-enroll yourself into your why. And every time I work with a woman, I'm like, this is why we do it, and it's just like watching people bloom. That's totally what it is. And it's in all of us.
Yes.
I don't even care where you're at in life. It's in you. You've just chose not to see it, just through life. Like, it just buries us sometimes. And so I love to, like, let's go digging and find the real you that's meant to shine.
Oh, and that's like what honestly, that's what you do. And that's like God's heart for people. And so that's beautiful. What do you think the kingdom mindset has, or do you think that the kingdom mindset, has that helped you build your brand and your business and your company? How has that played a role?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still learning again. For me, it's the spirit of fear, like I am full faith, the faith of the mustard seed, and really understanding, God wants us to multiply things and to think bigger.
Yes.
The kingdom mindset has allowed me to think bigger and to serve more people. And ultimately, above all, it's to glorify God and to not be afraid of what people will think. Like, you're going to intermix God and business. I'm like, I'm not going to leave him out of this. He's the reason for the whole thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just amplified absolutely everything. And there's no greater way. Yeah. Like, I'll sit here all day and people can fight me against it, So I just feel like it's expanded my mind so much and expanded what I want to do in terms of impact. And to honestly, it's also helped me not be so self-centered. It really has. I was in LA for so long where it's like self this and self that, and yes, we're the brands and we're the vessel, but it was so, what do I get from everything? And you feel rotten after a while. Yeah. And so the kingdom mindset has allowed me to go, no, what can we give to people? What can we build? What can we do? What can we show for other people? And it's just expanded me so much. And,
so good.
And that's the ultimate happiness right there. Yeah. We think it's about self, and it feels rotten after a while. Yeah. Like, trust me, I've lived that life. There's only so many selfies you can take, like for real. It just feels like I need to be impacting people.
That's so good. Yeah. I love that. It's just expanded you and it's amplified you. I love that. And I love what you're saying too. You're basically talking about the verse, Ephesians 3:20, now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think. I think that's what God does, is he does exceedingly, he does abundantly above, and it expands, like, even how creative and innovative God is. Like, when, man, he gives us a seed, and then he tells us what to do with that seed. And then he's so innovative, so creative. And the things that I'm like, man, I couldn't have thought of that even if I tried.
Straight up.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like, even with certain things that God's called me and Mark to do, with Baptize California, Baptize America, all the things that we're doing within our church, we couldn't have thought of the things that God wants us to do, but it only is God, right?
Yeah.
And he expands us, he enlarges us. And so that's the amazing thing about God, is how big he is and the things that he thinks, and he allows us to be a part of it. And that's just amazing to me.
So incredible.
Well, what would you say, Emily, to people that are starting a brand? Maybe they're starting from the ground up. What would you say would be 3 tips
Yeah.
you would give them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I would say start now.
Yeah.
Like, do not wait. It's so funny when I talk to people. They're like, well, maybe when I lose 10 pounds, or maybe, after, the kitchen's finished. I'm like, the kitchen's finished. Like, your personal brand is your life. Okay. And it's what you choose to show. So you do not have to show everything, and nor should you, right? You're walking through something, walk through that. Don't go show that on social media. But what I'd say is, take out a piece of paper and write down PIS, and we're going to go here. Let's go. What are your passions? And just really go there. And maybe you're like, but for work, I sell real estate. But no, what's your passions? Like, what are the things you're into? Maybe you're a beauty girl and you could sit in Sephora all day like me. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you love doing your own projects at home or whatever. So think about, what are your passions? Maybe you love reading. Maybe you love reading the Bible even. Maybe you're a worship leader. I don't know. But like, think of your passions. What are your interests? So interests for me, they're things that I am right now starting to learn. I'm interested. I'm not an expert in these things, but I am interested. So I'll give you an example. There was a time where I started to get really interested in decluttering because I came from a single mom, a little bit of a hoarder. Not, my mom's not a hoarder, but I was, because
Gotcha.
I had all hand-me-down clothes, and like I kept everything. And I'm like, no, we're supposed to give away. What are you doing? And so I really got into learning how to declutter and how do I organize things so that I don't have decision fatigue. So I was interested. So I'd watch all the videos, read all the books, learn so that was an interest. But okay, write it down. What are you interested? What are you learning right now? Maybe you're taking dancing lessons. I don't know, whatever. And then what are you skilled in?
That's good.
What have you walked through? Any parents, that's a skill. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what are you skilled at? Is it teaching? Think of all the skills.
It's really good.
I've built sales teams. I've done a lot of events. That's a skill. So you write all this down. Now you have this big list of paper and you're like, wow, this is my PIS. These are all things that I can now draw from to share on social media, because you're most powerfully positioned to serve who you once were. So you now have all these skills, and the best brands, they're teaching people something, inspiring or educating, or they could be just hilarious, and that could be humor, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I brain dump all this out, and then I circle things that I'm like, okay, I could talk about that. So, for me, biohacking could be a category. I love doing things that promote anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
So like when I travel, I put my legs up the wall, and it's free. I put my face in ice in the morning,
Yes, we need to all do these tips, Emily.
Like if I cry a lot, like my eyes get super puffy, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm so interested in that. I used to deal with gut issues. I don't chew gum because when I chew gum, my stomach thinks it's digesting. It makes me bloated. So this is just a random example of something I'm into. Now, what I do from there is I look at what could be your content pillars, and I help people write out pillars that they actually like. because there's a resonance to truth. And when you go online and you speak about things that you like or that it just converts better.
Right.
So that's how we get the party started.
Wow.
And then from there, after a while, we can get into some real strategy, things
good.
like that. But
so good.
yeah.
My gosh, that was like brilliant masterclass
We
right
could do
there.
a full thing.
Yes, like PIS.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be if somebody's afraid to start? I know at the beginning of that your talk you said like they just don't because they're doing their kitchen or they're doing something. What would you say to the people that are afraid to start? What would you say to that?
I would say ask yourself why. And then you might say, well, because of some lame excuse. And then I go a layer deeper, but why is that?
Yeah.
So I go 3 layers deep, and then I ask you, what is this costing you by not starting? What's it costing you? And this is usually when the waterworks come, and it's like, I want to share my journey, or I have a business I want to share, and it's costing me a lot. Maybe it's even a money thing. I don't know. So I typically do that. And then what I recommend is just start out every day with a prayer. And this is what I've done for over a decade. Trust me, there's so many days I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And I just say, Lord, please guide me and use me today, and I will show up for you. Just guide me and use me and give me the courage. Just a simple prayer.
I love that.
And then you just start one day at a time. And what I recommend with personal branding, and honesty is always the best policy. You don't have to fake things.
Yeah.
I think people think you have to fake things and you don't. And the more honest you get, the better your brand's actually going to be. So one of my clients who built a company behind the scenes, but now wants to build a personal brand, she is so afraid. So this is what I have her doing. She does a prayer every morning, sometimes multiple times a day. And I have her sharing with her audience, this is the number one thing I'm afraid of, but I'm doing it anyway. Wow. So now people are so bought into her message.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, she's doing it and I'll do it too.
Wow.
Right? So she just gets on and she starts sharing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
simple.
Because people can relate to that.
Yeah.
People they don't want the fake you, they want the real you.
Yeah.
I love that. So you're a keynote speaker. You speak so many different places. Do you have any upcoming keynote speaking engagements that you're excited to share about, or anything that you have up and coming that you're excited to share?
Lots of different things. Like I'm speaking in San Diego at a real estate thing. Lots of different things in the docket. But
that's awesome.
And I'll be having Fortify retreats once I get my building. We need to get the building. So yeah, all that's like social media, follow along there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So for those that are starting off, maybe doing something similar to you, maybe speaking or want to become like you, like being a keynote speaker, what would you say would be a key to overcoming nerves when starting to communicate in front of people? What did you do? Were you nervous when you first started, or how did that all look like when you first started? And what could they do to help them overcome nerves when they speak?
This is so good. And there's 2 parts to this, because people will come to me and say, I want to be on these big stages. And I'm like, okay, amazing. What small stages have you been on?
That's good.
And have you done it for free and many times over? You know, I'm like, if you can't serve in the small place, why on earth would God promote you to the big one? I would give little speeches in living rooms with 5 women.
Yeah.
I gave a speech in a janitor's closet. And you might be thinking, they're like, Emily, that's not a speech. I went in and all these women that were working at this health center, I went in the back to empower them to do better in sales. I'll remember I was like this dark little janitor's closet, but I gave them that energy. And it was my practice field.
Yeah.
So practice and practice and practice, and speak the truth and speak about what you know about. And so a lot of times people try to to speak about things that they're not, like they have not walked through. They're not an expert in. And that is the most uncomfortable thing on the planet.
It's the truth.
And I've done it before too, where I'm like, babe, this is not my subject. I'm talking to my husband. Not you, babe, but like, you know, I'm like, I'm like, don't ever let me do that again.
Yeah.
Because that fell off because it was off, you know? And so it's like, speak about what, and typically the first thing to look at is your story, right?
Good.
So start with your story and put yourself out there and start offering to help people and show up and deliver a message. And people want to know though, what is the key points of your message? You know, if you're going to go talk somewhere, you need to be an asset and not a liability. So it will take time to build that up. You know, even coming into a church or any kind of stage, it's like, we need to know if we put you on stage, you're an asset.
It's really good.
And it's a reflection of whosever brand of stage you're on. And so having a polished message, having your key points, and then filming yourself and watching it back. Oh, I don't like doing that. My husband makes me do it, and I'm like, you know what I mean?
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you watch it back.
It is good because you can see
what you do,
where you didn't pause, like take a breath. Because I'm a fire hose kind of girl.
Yes.
And so my husband like does this, like he's like, because I, you know, get going. And, you know, when it comes to nerves, like I still feel no matter what, even if I'm doing like a 10-minute little thing.
Yeah.
And that's just excitement for me. Like I just pray and take a deep breath and always know your first key point. That's the key. Like, I think if you know your first sentence,
it's good.
Then you can go from there.
You can go from there. So I love that when you were talking at the beginning, you were saying that you treated that when you spoke in that janitorial closet, like to me, it sounded like you were communicating like it was a big audience, and that's how you've always done it. It seemed like from what you were talking, and I love that because you have to start somewhere, but start small. But you know, envision that it's one day it's going to be this massive. There will be a lot of people, and you know, Mark and I starting our church, it was really small at the beginning, but we didn't treat it small. We knew that God was calling us here to reach many people. And so I know at the beginning, Mark or myself, we would preach or pray like, man, there was thousands of people in the church. And at that point, we only had like maybe, I don't know, 100 or something like that. And so for us, but I loved what you're saying. When it started small, but you were speaking like it was to this massive crowd.
And God will meet you at your level of expectation.
I love that.
And I just knew I need to help people and serve and you know, serving in the small spot and go out there, and it's practice. And then I feel like as well, and maybe you can relate as a speaker, pastor, is like the more you get to know yourself, the more comfortable you are.
Yes.
At first, when I got into the business world, I'm like, I can't be like that. Like, you know, like I kind of have my own flavor of how I speak. And finally, when I stopped trying to be like her and then I started to be more like me, that's when it's like all fell into place.
Yeah. And that's why I truly believe is like God anoints the authentic you, not the fake you. And so I truly believe that. It's like when you realize, oh my gosh, you're not trying to be someone else. You're not trying to copy that person, because God anoints you. He anoints the authentic you. So, and that's what you do so well. So that's why I love you. But did speaking always, was it natural for you, or did you always love speaking or communicating, or did that come later in years?
School was really hard, but speech communications was fun for me.
It was fun for you. Yes.
And because I grew up fast and I was always around adults. So I would go to my friend's house and I would hang out with their mom and dad.
Yeah.
I don't know what this was. I didn't have a lot of like childhood. My mom was always working, and I just craved being around adults. And when it came to speaking, I felt like I could lead people better when I communicated better. So I was always a little leader. Like I was my class president and things like, because I loved people.
Yeah.
My mom's always taught we love everyone the same, no matter what, you know? And so I feel like I knew like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
And then when I got into business, I'm like, I need to learn how to effectively communicate if I'm going to lead these people, if I'm going to inspire them. So I leaned into that gifting, and I called my buddy who's a pastor in Texas. His name's Oscar. And I'm like, okay, I need to do a speech for I've never done like a formal speech. And he's like, I've been waiting for the day because you're so good at like naturally talking. And then I just learned the framework and, you know, just continue to lean in though.
That's awesome.
But if you would watch like like there's a whole thing of me on stage before I was really after the Lord. I didn't even know I did this, but I was on stage and I put armor on at a business conference next to Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And, you know, and it meant to be like the company's values I was with, like put on the breastplate of integrity or whatever. So I feel like, I don't know. I feel like God was always like right there with me.
Wow.
He was just waiting for me to just wake up, you know?
So cool.
Yeah.
How cool is that? Well, you're just an incredible communicator. Do you think that growing up, your you know, with all the things that you've gone through in your life, do you think that obviously God has his giftings and talents that he's instilled into you, but do you think like the things that you've gone through in your life, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Just things that you grew up going through and walking through.
Definitely. For me, so when I was born, I'm the youngest of three, once four.
Yeah.
There was 2 boys, 2 girls, and I was a complete accident. And I had a brother who passed away under my dad's watch. And so there was so much oppression over my mom and dad. They were separated, and then she got pregnant with me, and he really wanted me to be a boy to the point of my name was going to be Matthew. Like they knew.
Oh, no way.
And it was so hard. It was like one of those things where they kept trying to stay together, but it was, you know, after my brother's death, and my dad blamed himself, and he was 5 when he got ran over. And so it was horrible. Like my uncle committed suicide. It was just like horrible things happening.
Yeah.
So when I was born on June 1st, my dad was just like, it's a girl, left my mom. And so basically that was like the start of my life, was like being rejected,
Oh my.
you know?
Yeah.
And so my mom, like, she's a warrior. She was like, I want full custody, took us kids, got us tiny little house, and, you know, did the best she could. But she ended up dating a guy who lived with us, and he was physically abusive. So, you know, like I grew up having to like have this dance of, you know, today she got a black eye, and then, you know, like making up all these stories. And it was just, I never knew, you know, like what I was walking into. Was it going to be peaceful? Was it going to be chaos? And, you know, it's just really taught me to love people so much, because you don't know what they've gone through. And like when you grow up not knowing, like, is your mom going to be alive after a beating? Like it's horrible. It's so horrible. And it just like, it burns me, you know, like it really does. And the thing though, that I knew when I was little, I would play in the basement with my dolls. And I also loved animals, because that's why I'm so like passionate about animals, because my dog would sleep under the covers and just like comfort me when I was little. And I had this like strange connection to the light. It's almost like I I was in my life, but I was not in my life. And now I know that was the Lord guiding me.
Wow.
But I just had this strange connection. And I know it's like he's always been guiding me along. And, you know, I could have gone down a super dark path, but it's like the Lord got this man out of our house. And he started to work first in my brother. My brother went to Northwestern Bible College, like pastoral ministries degree, became a pilot, married a beautiful woman whose parents are pastors. So like he broke that. My sister is healthy, marriage. So I felt like we're the ones that are ready to break. You know, people call it generational curses. So that has led me to now speak on generational transference to understand it.
Yes.
And now it all makes sense, Rachelle, because when I met my husband, Jake, it was the first like healthy masculine relationship I was really in. And I didn't know how to handle it.
Wow.
It was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, I want to understand this. So I went to work to heal and to understand. And I started to study generational transference.
Yes.
And now that's what I feel so called to talk about. Because I'm like, that's most of our problems, right?
Yes.
And so I went on and forgave my dad and forgave, you know, all these people. And it just like, I am who I am today because of it, you know, and my mom is in a healthy marriage now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She actually ended up marrying a man that's like a detective for the state. And he adores her. And so it's like, look what God did, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just to hear your story, what you've walked through and how God carried you through that. And his hand was on you, even though you had to walk through those turbulent times in your life. And just to see like it's part of your story, but now you get to help so many other people get set free from the things that they're bound by, you know, or that they're struggling with, or they haven't even told anybody about.
They haven't told anyone.
That's what I've seen so much.
I'm at these conferences and I walk them through this whole thing. It's called Never Be Shaken is my keynote.
I love that.
And I walk them through it, and I will go through questions with people. And there is couples in the audience where one was molested as a child. They're like married, but they never told each other, you know? And it's like, there's so much bondage and shame. And I just want to make it like cool and amazing to deal and heal. Because
so
I
good.
thought like time heals all wounds, and it's not.
No.
It's what you deal with and what the Lord can heal.
Yes.
Like the Holy Spirit, like this, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I'll go off, you know what I mean?
But yes.
I'm like, you don't have to live with that.
No.
You don't have to live with that any longer.
No. And that's what Mark and I see so much in the church is like, we'll counsel people, we'll talk with people, and they finally, you know, will bring to light something. They'll reveal something to their spouse that they've never told them before. And it's like, that's what's caused them to have so much pain in their life, but they haven't shared it with even their spouse, like you were saying. And that to me is like, I feel like the devil loves to do that just to make us not reveal things so God can't heal them. Because I really firmly believe you have to reveal it for God to heal it.
Yes.
And so if you keep it in, then, and that's what so many people do. They don't, well, a lot of people maybe don't feel like they want to reveal it to certain people. Yes, you need to share it with the right people, but still you need to reveal it so God can heal it. And I think that's the first step.
And there's so much freedom.
So much freedom in it. And it's like, you know, when you're healed, when you can talk about it.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
Because like when you can't talk about it, you know, it's not healed yet.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've come to find out. But oh my gosh, but that's what Mark and I are seeing within the church, and why there needs to be. That's why it's called the encounter. And or I think it's free dive, free dive now.
Yes.
But it was Encounter before. But so that's why we do that.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
what kind of free dive.
Yes. So it's basically just, in this, it's a 2-day thing, and it's a quick thing that we do, like a fire hose, but you break off stuff in your life. You reveal things that God needs to heal in your life. And that's why there's so much freedom at the end of that. And
my
like a
gosh.
lady I was praying for, she said during that free dive, she couldn't believe it. She goes, I realized that I had this soul tie, and it was causing me to have this eating disorder. And I didn't realize that. And there was so much pain within that soul tie, and I didn't know that. And I didn't reveal that to anybody. And it was God that revealed it. He's like, you need to get healed from that. And then she felt like she was healed from an eating disorder because of that.
So amazing.
And isn't that interesting that things are tied to the pain and the hurt that we go through?
Oh yeah. And the enemy wants to keep you there in bondage. He wants to keep you there
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. It's
And
so true.
It's like, I even look at photos after I did something similar to what you're talking about, a freedom healing session, and my like jaw looks different. My
No
face
way.
looks different.
That's what, yes.
Because you lock everything, you hold everything,
Yes.
tight. And it's like,
true.
I just feel like for anybody listening, it's never too late. It's never, even when I was single, I was like, oh, did I screw everything up? Like, who's going to want me? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, no, like the Lord can heal you, and you're made new again.
So good.
And you're pure white as snow.
I
Like,
love
how
that.
cool is that?
So amazing.
That's so cool.
I love it. And there's so much freedom. And I think that people, can you talk to some of the audience or some of the people that are listening, just like the freedom that you found in Jesus, the freedom that you found within letting God reveal things in your heart and healing it? Can you speak to some of the listeners and just say, give it to God, or whatever you would like to say to them?
Yeah, I used to be tormented at night. I had such strong anxiety. I claimed anxiety over me. I thought I'm an anxious person, and it would trigger things like eating issues. Like we can talk about it. I went through all of it. And I tried so many different things. And at that time, I didn't understand what I was doing, but I would go do yoga and sound baths and whatever retreat I could get to. And I get it, because all you want to do is get better, but it's this vicious cycle. If you don't get to the source of the issue and deal with it, it's going to keep you on this cycle, right?
Yeah.
And when I found true healing, I felt like the mask was literally taken off me, the mask I had been wearing for so many years. And we wear our masks in different ways. In my earlier years, and even a few years ago, I wore it like in business. Like that was my protection of my worth. And I thought my worth was based on how much I could produce. And it was based on titles, and it was based on earning. And that was how I got my self-worth, because I didn't get it from a man, right? It was like, that was how I felt worthy. And when you know the Lord, you don't need to earn anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you don't need to earn. You don't need to strive. I spent my life striving. And listen, it's great to have goals and a purpose and a mission. I am so mission driven. But when we're striving and everything is forced, there's a reason it doesn't flow.
It's so good.
And when you get that healing, it's like I have a confidence that I didn't even know I could have. And people ask all the time, like, where does your confidence come from? I'm like, it comes from the Lord.
Yeah.
Because I already, like, I care about his approval. I don't care about yours,
It's so good.
And it's just this true freedom. And again, we got to walk it out. And I always say we got to co-labor with God and whatever it is we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's the ultimate freedom.
So
And it's like, I'm good. And even now in things that I'm working on, it's like they're coming to me, where like years prior when I wasn't seeking God and I did not have that freedom, everything was so forced.
Oh,
It felt awful.
it's interesting how it's just now that it's like you're healed from all the things that you've gone through in your life, and God's your foundation, and there's so much freedom. Now God's opening up those doors, and it's not forced. It's
Yeah.
just all God.
Yeah.
And that's truly what happens. Mark and I always talk about, man, if that person would just get free, man, they would be unstoppable.
Yep. Same,
Right? It's
same.
just, you just look at people
Yeah.
and you see, maybe there's some things that they're struggling with. And
Yeah.
if they just got free, my gosh,
100%.
they would just be unstoppable.
Yes,
And the
and
things that God could do. With
I
them.
just know, I'm like, if we could just get you to have a healthy heart, this would tune from egomaniac to heart-centered leader. But it's beautiful, though,
Yeah.
that you can see that and still love those people.
Yes.
And that's what I love about you and Mark so much. You just love
Yeah.
people. And we know that the Lord is going to work in all people. Like we're just praying. But for
Yeah.
sure, like even there's like certain people, like I'm a huge Justin Bieber fan, and I'm just like,
Yes.
I know he's going to lead
Yes.
something. I keep praying for him. Like,
I know it's so cool to see
Yeah.
God, his story unfolding, and
Yeah.
how God is just getting a hold of his life. And it's just
Yeah.
amazing to see.
Yeah.
Like, I know, that's awesome. I know my sister I was telling you about, my sister did a LA Bible study, helped out in LA, and he went to that church.
So
and
cool.
she was even talking about, it's just incredible to see his journey and to see how God's healing him.
Yeah.
So how cool is that? That Justin Bieber, he's been on the greatest stages in all the world, and to see God heal him from the worst of the worst pain, my gosh, if he can do it for Justin Bieber, he can do it for you. He can do
Yeah.
it for anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so exciting. So,
Yeah.
but as we end the show, could you give us, like, if you were to look back at your 21-year-old self, what question, like, what would you say? Like, if you were to go back and go back to your 21-year-old self and give yourself advice, what would you say?
I would tell her to run to Jesus and stop running to all the other things. I mean, if I look at myself when I was 21, I moved out of the house. And I was doing some things right. Like I knew how my work ethic was there, grandparents, farmers, it, right? Like,
Yes.
but I got involved in fitness competing. I loved the attention. I mean, to me, it's like weird to even talk about right now, but like I competed in bikinis. It just, I can't believe what I did to my body. Like it was so weird. And I was a little bit of a maniac. I was looking for all this attention. Like if I look back, and I just wasn't following God, at all. I was following pop culture. I was following mainstream media. I mean, my beliefs are entirely different. Like, and on every level, I still loved people, but I was very self-absorbed. Like, and I would just tell me to lay it all down.
Oh.
And I remember there was moments where I could have, but the enemy was like fighting with me, and it was like, this life is better than this life. And, I went through that darkness and realized there's nothing good in there. Like it's gross.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would just say, like, lay it all down. Like, you don't have to carry this. It's not yours to carry. You don't have to prove anything to anyone.
Yes.
I was on a mission to prove something to someone. Was it the dad I never had? I don't know. I was trying to prove something. To find my self-worth. I'm already worthy. And that's what I would tell myself. You're already worthy. You're already loved.
Yes.
Stop doing these things to your body.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So good.
You know?
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, could you pray for those listening? Just on that same subject, like that God loves them. And just all those things that you were just sharing. Can you pray for those that are listening
Yeah,
today?
absolutely. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for Pastor Rachelle and Collective Talk. And I thank you for the person listening to this right now, whether you're out on a walk or driving in your car, wherever you are. I want you to know that the Lord loves you and he sees you just as you are. And there's areas in your life that maybe you have pushed down so far and you feel ashamed of them, but the Lord is here to tell you that you can be healed from past trauma, from generational wounds, and you did not do these things to yourself, but it's up to you to set yourself free, and you can do that walking with the Lord. The Lord wants you to know that it is your time to heal. You do not have to go another season living the same life filled with oppression. You can seek Jesus now. Jesus wants you to seek him now, and he is here for you. He is here for you. You call upon him and ask him to heal you with the blood of Jesus. And take that next step to start to grow with him. Get in a great Bible-based church, surround yourself with great people, and start your healing journey today. It is not too late. Now is the time. And I want to hear, and Rachelle wants to hear your story of healing. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So powerful. Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming on
Thank
today.
you.
It was seriously so impactful.
This
All the
was
things
so
that
special.
you shared were just beautiful. And I loved hearing some of the stuff I had never heard before.
Thank you.
And, but you're an incredible person, beautiful on the inside and out. And I'm just so thankful that you're my friend and that you were able to come on the show
I love
today.
you, and I
love
will
you.
follow you till the moon. Anything you do. And I am so proud that you are doing this show.
Thank
I
you,
remember
Emily.
one of the first times I met you, and then obviously met Pastor Mark, and I'm like, I need to hear Rachelle more. Can she speak more? I admire you so much, and
so
I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and I'm grateful that you're doing this so that people can learn from you. You're one of the best teachers.
You're so
When I get to be in your Bible study or hear you it's like copious amounts of notes, the wisdom that you have. And for me, it's been so fun to have a woman who's similar to me. Like you like style, you like beauty, but you have been an example for me. Like you can still wear cute stuff and do all and love I needed that example. And just the way you move and operate in life.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful.
Oh my gosh.
We need more
Love
Rachelle.
You. Oh,
more Rachelle.
I love you. I need you on the show every day.
Yeah, I'll come.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, now I know where you guys live.
Yes,
So
now
I'm
you
coming.
just have to, come all the time.
Yeah, beep, beep, here she comes.
I love you. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Collective Talk, where we shared reflections on how to fortify your life, business, and brand. Stay tuned for future episodes as we dive into the topics of prayer, family, and ministry.